In the 1950s, the CIA embarked on an experiment in brainwashing. It needed human guinea pigs. It picked Canadian citizens.
The doctor started from left to right there, telling me, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. What did they want to make me kill? I'll never know. They never told me.
This week, after a grueling 8-year wait, these victims had a day in court. They say they sought justice. Some say they got peanuts.
Everyone knows that the CIA did not really give a damn about what happened to the people who were subjected to it.
The CIA was in the headlines this week, twice. First, it was disclosed that President Reagan had signed a secret order that some claim gave the agency a license to kill. Then, 9 Canadian citizens hauled the CIA into court, charging they'd been made part of a horrible experiment in brainwashing. They claimed that they were drugged into a zombie-like state, electrically shocked several times a day, and forced to listen to tape-recorded messages played hundreds of thousands of times. The lawsuit these victims filed was not against some mad scientist. It was against our government. The ordeal began in the 1950s. The Korean War had just ended, but the Cold War was heating up. In Washington, there was a widespread fear that the Soviets and Chinese were moving ahead of us in mind control experiments. According to court documents, Richard Helms, an employee at the CIA who would later become its director, authorized the agency to conduct research in brainwashing. The search for an expert led the CIA to Canada, where the agency struck a deal with a noted psychiatrist. This is the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, one of Canada's most highly respected psychiatric hospitals. In 1956, the director of psychiatry here was Dr. Ewan Cameron, one of the country's most highly regarded psychiatrists. Patients were referred to him by doctors from all over the world. Dr. Cameron was doing research of his own in the field of brainwashing. He was fascinated by the mind control he had heard described in countries behind the Iron Curtain. The CIA was fascinated too. The court case alleged that the CIA backed Dr. Cameron's horrific experiments that were conducted on more than 70 patients, forcing them to endure 3 tormenting phases of so-called treatment. First, according to the complaint, Dr. Cameron and others would give patients mind-altering drugs like LSD and angel dust. They would mask them and force them to inhale laughing gas. They would give them high-voltage electric shocks several times a day, effectively turning the patients into vegetables. Once the patients were immobilized, Dr. Cameron would play what were called psychic driving tapes, messages that were repeated up to 500,000 times. Finally, Dr. Cameron would put the patients to sleep with massive amounts of barbiturates. These sleep episodes could last 50 days or longer.
They took me in a room outside the ward, in a very little room, and they put 3 or 4 pillows at the end of the bed, and there were 4 doctors at the end of the bed there, and one doctor was putting me a mask there. The doctor started from left to right there, telling me, kill him, 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 kill him. What did they want to make me kill? I'll never know. They never told me. I don't know.
Of all Dr. Cameron's colleagues still alive, this man knew him best. Dr. Robert Cleghorn, now practicing psychiatry in Toronto, worked under Dr. Cameron in the 1950s.
They were very serious cases who came to be treated by Dr. Cameron. And they were very sick people. Now, how nefarious the treatment was as far as their continued existence is a debatable point.
You took over as director of the Allen Institute August 1964?
Well, 1st of September, yes.
And the day that you took over, those experiments were ended by you.
No. What was done was that a committee was set up to gain data on the patients and on the appropriateness and the usefulness and the outcome of treatment. And that committee went to work and produced a report which led me, on the basis of the evidence available, to discontinue that form of treatment.
We'll never hear from Dr. Cameron on any of this. He died in a mountaineering accident in 1966. And the evidence of what he did might never have seen the light of day, if not for the sheer determination of the man you'll meet next, a man who single-handedly exposed this entire episode.
I think Dr. Cameron was the original ends justify the means man. He was a scientist. He was a very famous psychiatrist, president of the American Psychiatric Association, president of the Canadian Psychiatric Association, and he felt that anything was justified in the pursuit of cures to mental illness. And if you had to break a few eggs in order to make an omelet, that was Dr. Cameron.
And he did.
And he did. He broke a few eggs. He broke a few heads.
John Marks is the author of a best-selling book that exposed the CIA and brainwashing, The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. To write it, Marks relied on confidential sources, some of which he will still not reveal. Documents Marks found proved the CIA had devised a clever but surprisingly simple way to fund Dr. Cameron. It set up a dummy front, calling it the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. The CIA diverted $60,000 in taxpayer money to Dr. Cameron. The patients sent to him suffered from a variety of emotional disorders, ranging from postnatal depression to nervous anxiety to alcoholism. They signed the standard hospital consent forms, which did not refer to any experimental program.
People came to Dr. Cameron trusting that he was a good psychiatrist, and he did things to them which went beyond the pale. They had no way of knowing they went beyond the pale.
Marks's book exposing Dr. Cameron and the CIA quickly became headline news. Marks was interviewed on Canadian television. Jean-Charles Paget, one of Dr. Cameron's patients, saw the telecast by chance. He roused his wife, Janine, from bed.
He woke me up to tell me and said, come and listen to that, you know. That's what I was speaking to you about so often, you know.
Harvey Weinstein, whose father was also treated by Dr. Cameron, learned about the charges while reading a newspaper.
There was a review of a book by a man named John Marks. The book was called The Search for the Manchurian Candidate. And it described how he, using the Freedom of Information Act, had gotten information about the CIA's mind control program, MKUltra. And that one of the sites of this mind control work was the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal in the 1950s. And it still brings tears to my eyes. It was a shock of realizing for the first time that all my explanations of what had happened to my father were ridiculous. I mean, something had been done to him that he and I and my mother had no control over.
And when I read the article, I just shuddered. Somehow I just knew that I had been part of it.
Victim Robert Logie was told by Dr. Cameron he had a psychosomatic illness. He found out later it was just arthritis. For 8 long years, these victims of mind control patiently waited for their day in court. Then last Tuesday, it came. The lawsuit against the CIA was heard by a federal judge here in Washington. The suit's goal? To establish once and for all that 9 people were the subjects of a cruel experiment in brainwashing.
My mother went over to him. He knew who she was, and he kind of looked blankly at me. And she said, "It's your son. It's your son." And he didn't respond. And then he turned to her and asked her about his mother, who had been dead for 4 years. And I mean, here I am, 14 years of age. I've never seen anything like this. There's this man that I grew up with, looks like him, but it's not him.
There was a little loudspeaker under the pillow, and it was talking to me all the time while I was sleeping. That was the repatterning.
After I got my medical records, I kept putting myself back into that sleep room and concentrating on the tape player. And one day it just came to me what was on the tape itself. And those words were, "You killed your mother." So I know it sounds bizarre, but That's what was on the tape.
Why did they do that to us? You know? Why us? Why did they do it? You know, it's unhuman to use people as guinea pigs.
Everyone knows that the CIA did not really give a damn about what happened to the people who were subjected to it.
James Turner represented the victims of Dr. Cameron and the CIA. For each of them, he was seeking $1 million in damages. But after negotiations with the U.S. Attorney's Office this week, Turner has settled out of court. Each plaintiff will receive 108,000 Canadian dollars from the U.S. government, the equivalent of $90,000 American, a substantially lower amount than what some of them had hoped for.
I have no doubt in my mind this is a very significant victory.
I think they got away cheap. Yeah. How much is a life worth?
The sadness I feel is that many of the issues that I consider to be extremely important, having to do with unwitting experimentation on innocent civilians, issues of human experimentation, issues of the powers of intelligence agencies, none of that is going to be debated over a period of time. That makes me feel somewhat sad.
My lifespan has been short, that's for sure. But the rest of my life, I'll be able to live it a little more comfortably, you know?
The settlement of this case is still not 100% final. Its terms must still be approved by the Justice Department. The Justice Department lawyers would not speak with us, but they told the judge that they want to speed up that approval process. Now that it's over, they want to get this episode behind them, too.